I'm Chris. I'm one of 5 co-founders of Shambhala Festival. I'm the Operations Director. We have John Walsh, who is the Financial Director, Sid Sharma, Creative Director, Dan Rafferty, the Music Production Manager and Booker for the main stages, and Ollie Grassi, who actually loves food and is a chef, but certainly comes and enjoys it and has contributed at board level for 15 years. So we're an old bunch of mates, and we're still friends after 20 years, and we're still doing it, and we're still enjoying it. Here we are at the build for Shambhala Festival, 7 days to go until we open. The tents are going up, and trackway's in, festoon is being flown, team is building. We've just got crew catering, so everyone's happy, and we're dealing with a bit of moisture. It's sunny today. We've laid off the ground for as much as we can over the last 2 days with a lot of rain, but we're on schedule. So as with most festivals, we have wet weather contingencies, stacks of resources on hand to cope with the wet site, extra trackway. We've got space in the build, so if we need to take a little bit of time off the land to try and preserve it, we can. Obviously there's a limit to that because we've got to get the thing built. We can order in stone, wood chip, whatever we need at short notice, which you know can save it. You've got to keep the vehicles moving, especially service vehicles during the show. So I guess we'd be as prepared as possible. We have resources up our sleeve. We take it day by day because the weather forecast is not exactly reliable. So we get up, we have a look around, we make a plan for the day. We do take notice of what might happen tomorrow with the weather and what might happen with the week, but particularly in this area of the country it seems so changeable that we literally do have to take it day by day. With managing a build you have to be very dynamic. We've got to open the show when the public arrive, and we found it's really important to have solid working relations with our contractors. Example of this is yesterday. We had a window of opportunity and Wernix brought in twice as many cabins as was scheduled. Obviously good for them, they don't want to be bringing stuff onto a wet site, and good for us because we can protect the land. We've around 15,000 people in the field, so obviously we've grown from 0 to 15,000 over 19 years now. People often ask why not grow it if you're selling out. You know, we sell out in January for an August event with no marketing. You know, we do a bit of stuff on Facebook, of course, and send emailers out, but there's no advertising. So the way we see it, we probably could sell the show twice, but the decision is around risk, really. I see what we do in event management as managing multiple risks, diverse risks, and we've got the show working. It's a great audience experience, people are having a good time. It's a sustainable business, it's a profitable business. We've got risks as far as you can in the right place, and I guess there's a quality of life question for us as a group of 5 directors as well, in terms of, you know, we've got families, we're middle-aged, I don't like to say it, but we are, and we've just got this thing where it needs to be. It works. One of the remarkable things about Shambhala is that people trust the experience they're going to have so much that they'll buy a ticket before we've released any lineup. But people often ask, are your audience making a choice based on the ethics and the sort of leading green credentials of the festival? Well, perhaps based on our demographics, some people might choose to come, but the reality is that they choose to come for the party. You know, they want to let go for a weekend, they want to be inspired, they want to see great acts, and so I think the credentials and the ethics is actually a bonus. People don't buy a ticket based purely on the ethics of a festival. They buy a ticket because it's a good festival. But I would say that audiences are now demanding and expecting festival organisers to take action on the environment, and a lot of survey data from various surveys that have been taken over the past 2 or 3 years have shown that this trend is exponential, and so there is demand, very strong demand, and a voice from audiences saying to festival organisers, we expect you to look at plastic, look at your carbon footprint and take action on the environment. When we were youngsters throwing a party, we did have ethics, we did treat people with respect, we always paid people, you know, we conducted ourselves in a way that you would expect someone to. But I guess as we started to have families and got a bit older, the environment became a lot more important, social responsibility became a lot more important, and so we have firmly become or grown into being a purpose and values-led business. We have an environmental policy, we have an environmental procurement policy, we have a policy for everything. So it's energy, it's water use, it's waste management, its travel emissions, all of which can be kind of considered as part of your environmental impact and footprint. There's ways to measure everything, and so that informs our procurement policy. And the procurement policy is very strict and detailed, and sets out which kind of products we buy, which kind of services we procure, and which companies we work with in terms of their credentials. Around 10 years ago we decided that we wanted to be 100% renewably powered. The first forays was to look at hybridising, and that was quite effective in reducing fuel use. We've now moved to renewably sourced HVO fuel, hydrogenated vegetable oil, which is zero rated in terms of carbon. It's actually come from a waste product. So we've been kind of pushing and tinkering for about 10 years. It took us 3 to 4 years to actually become 100% renewably powered. We're very proud of that. We've sort of nailed that in 2015. And now we've kind of moved into the second phase, which is kind of aggressive demand reduction. So we've been doing things like a 3-year plan to move traders onto metered power. So in year 1 we monitored the energy that every single caterer used on site, so that we could get a baseline average use and start conversations with each of them, especially the high users, around how reductions could be made in their energy consumption. In year 2 we started charging. We actually give people a bill at the end of the festival, which is a bit like the an EPC certificate or the environmental rating you see on the side of a fridge with the colour rating. So we've created a bill format which kind of follows that, because using existing symbology really helps people to sort of engage with what you're doing. It just makes it clear. So after the event we send everyone a bill to say, hey, you've used 150 kilowatt hours power, this is how much it costs per kilowatt, and this is what you owe us. So what we're doing is creating financial incentives for people to actually reduce their energy. Overall, our income from traders' power remains the same, because we were able to calibrate the charging tariffs at the outset. We need to maintain and protect our incomes. We want to inspire people to make changes. We want to reduce our carbon footprint, and we also want to maintain our partners' income. And that's an example of how you can do it. So I'm about to launch a 3-year strategy, which is called Beyond Fuel, which is to see how close we can get to zero fuel on a 15,000 festival. And with the emerging battery technology, and for some sites the opportunity of a grid connection, this is becoming a reality rather than a pipe dream. We work with Impression One to deliver our site-wide power, and they've brought some amazing innovations, one of which is that a power station approach. So what's been really successful over the last couple of years has been to put 2 or 3 very large sets together, synced, and then run significant distro across the different islands, rather than having, say, 8 or 10 smaller localised generators. And it was certainly an experiment. We weren't absolutely sure whether what the savings would be. But what it means, of course, is that for build power, you just have a small set. For show power, you can turn on the big set, and at peak times you can turn on the second big set. So you're just creating the most efficient scenario possible. And that has saved significant amounts of fuel, I think 30-40% on those islands. Another innovation this year is that we are trialling for the first time an electric buggy. So the questions we had was, does it work? Charge quickly? How long does a charge last? And does it have the torque to pull the loads? And so far so good. So we're working with electric wheels, and they've got 4 buggies on offer this season to trial, and an electric bike actually. And so far so good. So we're very much part of a community in the festival industry who are sort of leading change. One of the organisations or projects that we've been involved in for almost 10 years now is Powerful Thinking, which has brought together industry associations like Association for Festival Organisers, the Association of Independent Festivals, the Production Services Association, Julie's Bicycle, and many other organisations to discuss where we're going and be strategic and provide free-to-use resources, and just generally provide that kind of impetus for change. An example of how we inspire change is the Meat and Fish Free initiative, which it was a nerve-wracking one, and people thought we were, fellow festival organisers thought we were bonkers, but essentially we took meat and fish off the menu completely, and the feedback was interesting. We knew that over 70% of our audience were meat and fish eaters, so we were nervous about what kind of reaction we were going to get. Broadly speaking, people were supportive because we were very open about the reasons we were doing it. We're here to provoke conversation. It's only 4 days of your life, and people choose to come. But despite that, some people, a minority, a very vocal minority, did question whether we had the right to make choices about their diet. I think we have a responsibility as an organisation, as an industry, to make responsible decisions and inspire people to think about the decisions they're making. We wanted to know what impact meat and fish free had on our audience, and so we followed up with surveys. And what we found was that of the 70% of people who had identified as eating meat and fish, 50% of them had said that they had drastically changed their diet. So we followed that up 6 months later with another survey to those people that had said they'd made a drastic change, and around 75% of them said they'd sustained that change. So it's the first time that we have had sort of robustly evidenced feedback for the changes that people make when they leave Shambhala. So in 2015 we launched the Show Must Go On report, which really was a benchmark in terms of the journey of our industry towards a sustainable future. We brought together all the information that we knew existed at the time, put it into a report and created a roadmap for change. Essentially that has become the narrative for change in our industry. Without a start point, without benchmarks, without some sense of what is possible and what changes we can make and a target, it was difficult as an industry to move forward. The vision we launched in 2015 is Vision 2025. So it's a 10-year roadmap to reduce emissions in the industry by 50%. We know it's possible. This year is another exciting moment for that journey. We're launching the second edition of the Show Must Go On report in early 2020. So over the last 10 years we have reduced the carbon footprint of Shambhala by 80%. Now I always find it interesting that typically 80% of a festival's carbon footprint is from travel. So travel is often the area a festival organiser might look at. It's something we've been working with for years. So we've been encouraging people onto coaches. We had an initiative 2 years ago where we wrapped up 25% of our tickets as coach packages, which is, that's not coercing people. It's saying, right, that's job done. That's 25% of people travelling on coaches. That's thousands less cars and a much lower carbon footprint. We work with a partner, Energy Revolution, and on top of every car and camper van pass is a small fee, and that balances the carbon. So we are moving towards and hope to have achieved, probably by next year, 2020, 100% of travel to the festival being balanced. Like many other festivals, we've been thinking about plastic for quite a long time, and one of the really positive initiatives was to replace disposable plastic bar cups with reusable cups. It's an example that I like because we managed to reduce the carbon footprint. It's cheaper for us to deliver even though we use a third party, and the audience experience is better. It might sound obvious, but if you take 100,000 cups out of your ecosystem, which are possibly going to get dropped on the ground, then suddenly you've got a cleaner site, and that's an immediate positive for the audience. Everyone really noticed how tidy the site was, appreciated it, and it kind of helped people to engage with the culture of looking after the place. There's this kind of tipping point that people talk about in terms of behaviour, whereby if there's very little litter, people feel it's unacceptable to drop litter, and therefore you kind of end up with a sort of immaculate site. Whereas if it's just the wrong side of that tipping point and there's a bit of litter around, and people think, it's fine to drop it, and they do, and then you've got a problem on your hands. Yeah, so as a festival that sells out, we're vulnerable to secondary ticketing. We offer refunds right up to the event. We just stopped refunds yesterday, about a week before the event. We do our absolute best to broadcast again and again on social media to our audience that for any reason we'll give you a refund, and then the tickets, it's much less likely that the tickets will go on secondary sites. We also publish that any ticket bought from any provider other than our official provider simply won't be valid. We work with the ticket sellers to sell our tickets, but we also use their event management system, which is fantastic. It's called Eventry, and effectively we manage all our accreditation for crew and performers, vehicles and people, purchase ordering, budget management, resource management. We've worked closely with them over 15 years and helped them develop that, and it's a fantastic tool. It can be a very serious business, as we all know in the events industry, managing multiple risks, but we're also in it for fun. And one of the things we like to do at Shambhala is just to push in every direction, and we are very interested in the conversation around digital privacy. It's been hitting the broadsheets for the last year, and one of the ways we've started to work with that is to develop our own app, which puts privacy first.
I'm John Walsh, one of the directors and co-founders of Shambhala and Canbay Events Limited. For Shambhala itself, I basically look after the business side of things, the ticketing, front of house, all the bars, all that sort of side of things, and then also act as the deputy in terms of operations and licensing to Chris over the weekend. My sort of wider remit in terms of Canbay is like looking after different events and developing sort of new ideas, new tech. You know, our new app that we built ourselves is one of the big things that I've been working on over the last few years. The app journey really started kind of about 4 years ago. It was a combination of looking at communication tools, looking at where social media, first generation social media was at, and then also considering other aspects in terms of, you know, event economies and the digitisation of those and where the future may be. I personally got really inspired by the crypto blockchain sphere about 5 years ago. We did sell tickets for some time in Bitcoin, and that was the whole sort of start of like actually envisaging where kind of economies will go, both within events and generally in terms of people, communities and nation states. So we started to have a look what was out there, and the big thing for us is the ethics of how we do things and how we conduct ourselves and that. So we decided to develop our own app with some developer friends that we have, and that was a journey that we properly started sort of 3 years ago. So this year will be the third incarnation of the Shambhala app. The first one was very much a basic event app in terms of listings and information and GPS sort of location mapping, so you can find things, you know. But again, the whole purpose of it, rather than trying to create as much screen time from a user, getting information to people as directly and quickly as possible so that they will put their phones back in their pockets. You know, at the same time we were having conversations about not having phones on sites or in venues, so actually kind of looking to develop an app and the benefits of sort of communication and you know, features of an app, we were weighing against kind of this whole thing of having a space that's free of phones and tech as much as possible. In year 2 we started to develop different ideas, both ideas of what we could do with the app, with our community on site, experiments with sort of trust in the digital sphere, but then also looking to, like, quite a few people started to express interest in what we were doing, so we were also thinking about letting other people sort of use the platform and have their own event apps. So year 2 we basically formed a company around the app, which is Boma Digital Limited. We've worked with a handful of festivals as a test case for the event app. Shambhala being the bleeding edge of us testing the technology, we've really started to develop the sort of blockchain identity, anonymity being at the fore, but looking at other modes of identity. So last year we put in a community token, which is a ERC sort of 20 based, Ethereum based blockchain token that and nobody puts in any details, no names, no addresses, no kind of emails, no Facebook links, Instagram, but what the token does, it generates based on your participation in the community in the time and space of the festival. So if you came to the festival last year, you could mine a token. That token is a unique, infallible proof that it's like a badge of your participation that proves you were part of that community. So this year, we're actually now going to take that a step further. There is a sort of a holding wallet in the app now, so you can keep your tokens, and this year there will be another community token, but also we're launching a year-round community events listings. So if you come to the event and participate in it and become a member of the 2019 community and get your token, then you'll actually be able to, the app's going to run year-round, be updated constantly, and people are going to submit community events that they feel that other members of the Shambhala family might be interested in and might want to participate in. Again, the whole purpose of it is so rather than focusing in just on the weekend and getting out of the audience what you can, it's actually about sort of developing and nurturing that audience year round to create more physical, real world, purposeful engagement. So anybody can submit anything. In year one we're curating it centrally, but we are looking at kind of crowdsourced futures for it and curation for it, which will be an interesting journey over the next couple of years. And we really hope that it will really help sort of projects and volunteering and charities that we work with, their sort of fundraising events and community sort of events. But it may also be people just deciding to have a kind of community exchange project or a sort of self-help to clean up a park somewhere, or that basically we're just really going to try and seed it and push and say, come up with your ideas, let's use our collective kind of community and try and get together, have a good time and do some good in the world. In terms of an event app, there's a great amount of value as an event organiser in terms of communication and notifications and free messaging fundamentally, but it has been kind of one-way traffic, and I think that's the really interesting experiment now, is to really try and make that two-way, but also instead of kind of the communication coming directly up to ourselves as the organisers, actually the sort of peer-to-peer communication that can be enabled through blockchain. In the future we're looking at kind of basically avatars for individuals, so you will be able to, within the sort of the larger group of the Shambhala family, you'd be able to connect with your group of mates or friends that you went with, and you would have sort of direct messaging capabilities, for example, with your group of friends that you've connected with, but you're not messaging everybody in the whole community, so it's sort of really shifting the sort of mode of communication in terms of, rather than posting out to everybody, kind of like throwing pebbles in a huge ocean, actually making it much more intelligent, and direct, so that people aren't wasting time kind of looking at every single message from every single person. It's making digital tech more relevant, more direct, and again decreasing the amount of time that you take on, that you spend on the tech, but also making the time that you do use the tech like really kind of valuable in terms of like what you get back from it and what you can create and engineer yourselves as a small group within a bigger group. And then obviously with BOMA, the idea there is, we're working with sort of various interesting test cases, like from Cheltenham Jazz Festival to a festival in East Africa to kind of Greenbelt down the road from where people that kind of get the idea of like, the purpose of the anonymity, but the idea of individuals and events potentially linking up in the future is also something that really massively interests me. I think we've got an industry where there's a lot of people that want to create a lot of joy, want to put a lot of love in, and it really can be sort of quite a powerful cross-pollination, I believe, in terms of the space in between the actual weekends of festivals and events. So very exciting for me at the moment.
If we can form a long-term relationship with a supplier, they have the confidence to invest in innovations, we get better costs obviously on a sort of 3 to 5 year contract. We're likely to have a better service on site because they're familiar with the gig. There's just multiple reasons why developing, trusting long-term relationships with suppliers benefits everyone. So we've been working with a charity called RAW on becoming plastic free, disposables plastic free specifically. We've kind of nailed that one, except cable ties. In a wet break, everyone's just tearing the Harris cover off. Everyone just is tired, needs to get out of there. So trying to persuade people to not cut a cable tie is a pretty big ask. So what we need from the supply chain is a perfect new design of cable tie, which is easy to whip off, strong but easy to whip off. As part of going plastic free, we took water off sale in single-use plastics, and with that came a need to provide very good access, better than previous access to water. So we now have a more extensive network of taps and refill points, but we also manage our water consumption very carefully by having limiters in showers, so that the showers and all the taps have limiters on them, so that it reduces the amount of water that's used and wasted. We are very proud as a festival, as Shambhala, to be pioneering. It's our intention to be so. And part of the motivation for that is that we have the opportunity as a festival to innovate, to test things out. Often an initiative won't work in the first year, but we'll just keep going. We'll tweak it. If it works, we'll share it, and that's the point really. It's not just that the festival is effectively a petri dish to experiment, although that opportunity is obviously crucial to what we can offer the industry. We are here to have a good time and provide people with a show, but we will take every opportunity to kind of learn what we can learn through the mistakes and through the successes.